Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with writer and family historian Judith A. Perkins. She will soon be 83 years old and didn't start writing until she was 80. At that time, she realized that she was the oldest living member of her family, and if she did not write down some of the stories that her grandmothers and great-grandmothers told her, they would be lost forever. So she started writing, thinking that she would just print them and give them to her children. Her children and husband are the ones who convinced her to have the book published. From there, she branched out into writing novels. It's a great story. Enjoy.
Well, I'm looking forward to getting into your life. You've lived quite a life. I want to delve into your world as a writer and everything that's kind of evolved into who you are. So thank you again for taking a minute out today.
My pleasure.
So let's begin our journey here into your life and your world by asking you, 4 years ago we were trying to figure this pandemic out. How long is it going to last? How are we going to get through it? All the particulars. How did you ultimately make it through the COVID pandemic, and how did it change the way that you do things now?
It started, we were in Yuma, Arizona. For about 20 years, we wintered in Yuma. And we were down there when COVID really started affecting so many people. And when I turned 80 years old, I realized that I was the last person in my line. And I had a lot of history that I wanted to portray to my children. I come from a very strong matriarchal family. I had ancestors who I knew very well. My great-grandmother, I was 20 years old when she passed away. So I knew her very well. We lived in the same town. And she would tell me stories about how she grew up in Eastern Washington and in a hotel that her father owned. And I wanted to relay these stories to my children because they were so fascinating and it was part of their history. So I started writing. And I was originally going to just spiral bind all of these things and give it to my children as a gift. But my husband and my boys decided that I should have it published. And so I kept writing and kept writing and kept writing. And finally this book titled Life and Love Continue ended with us being in Yuma, Arizona. So it went all through my ancestors and my life up until that point. Then, because nothing much was happening in my life, we didn't go out that much. We, didn't meet to play cards and have dinners and everything because of COVID. I decided to use that history as a guide to writing a novel. And so I did, and it became Journey to the Pacific, One Man's Quest. And that's kind of how it started.
So let me ask you this. Your life prior to being a writer, if I was to put you in front of a bunch of third graders at career day and one of the kids was curious and said, hey, what do you do for a living? You can explain to them what you did and even explain what you do now.
What I did was, before I was married, I was in retail for a long time. And then when I was married, I stayed home with my children for a while, and then I went to work with my husband. He was an insurance agent, and I became an agent also. And we had an office, and we sold insurance and handled people's insurance problems for 25 years until we retired in 2000. After that, we had decided early on in our marriage that when we retired, we were going to buy a motorhome and we were going to travel. So we did just that, and we were able to travel through the whole United States, all 48 lower states with our motorhome, and we ended up in Yuma. And by the time we had been to all the states, we decided Yuma was where we wanted to spend the winter, and so we did for almost 20 years. And now I spend my time, I work with my local Kiwanis Club, Kiwanis International. It's a organization of adults who serve the children of the world. and we work with the kids. I'm the president of my local club, so that takes up a lot of my time. And I write. I have several other books finished and in the drawer, ready to be published when I decide to publish them. And I'm working on a third book now in the Journey to the Pacific series. I have a sequel that's called The Emancipation of William Jones, Jr. that is published and is available at this time. And now I'm working on a third one.
So when you were in the third grade, what did you want to be when you grew up? What was your dream?
A teacher. I wanted to be a teacher. My mother was a teacher. My father was a grade school principal and finally became a college professor just before he died. And that's all I wanted to do until I went to college for 2 years and decided I didn't want to be a teacher. So that's when I went into retail.
So take me back to your childhood. Where were you born and raised? What were some of these seeds that you had for adventure, for writing and becoming who you are?
I was born and raised in Portland, Oregon. I lived there until I was married. I did quite a bit of traveling. I traveled to Europe with some friends on a very limited budget and had a great time, but that was in the 60s when young women could do that. I was involved in Job's Daughters when I was in high school, and that was a fraternal organization associated with the Masonic Lodge. I was not real active in school activities. I was kind of a loner at that time, but I enjoyed school. I enjoyed being with my mother. My father died when I was 14 years old, and my mother remarried, and my stepfather was the best thing that ever happened to our family. We just absolutely adored him. So, and we lived a good life. We lived a comfortable, pleasant life. I got along with my parents. I never had an argument with my brother. We got along very well. He went into the Navy, and unfortunately he died when he was very young at 45 years old. So that's when I realized, boy, there's nobody else around. My mother was an only child and didn't have any siblings, so I had no cousins, no close cousins. So I kind of was a loner for a while until I met my husband, and we've been married for 57 years now.
Wow. So who's been a hero? Who's been an inspiration for you in your life?
Probably my mother. She was a very unusual lady. She was an excellent teacher. She was an artist. She crocheted. She would knit. She would do embroidery. She would do needlepoint. She made lace. She tatted. Any kind of needlecraft she could do. She painted. She was an excellent artist. She did toll painting. She did oil painting. My house is full of her paintings. She was loved by everyone she ever met. And she told me there was nobody that she knew that she didn't dislike. And everybody felt the same about her.
She that's amazing.
She was really my inspiration. She, and the fact that she never ever spanked me when I was little or any time. She always listened to me and my brother. She took our feelings into consideration. She was strict at times when we absolutely needed it. But she was always very kind and very fair.
So if you could meet anybody alive on the planet right now that you find fascinating, interesting, someone that you can learn from, who would that be?
Oh, boy, that's really a question. I've never thought about it before. I'm not that much into politics, so politicians don't really interest me, and especially right now when there's so much controversy about everything. Probably someone like someone that would be like Nelson Mandela. I know I can't meet him now, but someone like that, the Dalai Lama, somebody that's inspirational, that has a lot of hope and positive thoughts about things. I really haven't thought about anybody specific that I would like to meet like that.
No, that's great. That was a great answer. And I'm curious, for all these adventures that you've been through and all the stories you're writing and the passion you have for your family, what has been that fire for you in your life to be inspired, to do all of this work, to live the way that you have? What has that been for you?
My children, my grandchildren. I now have 3 great-grandchildren. My hope and my inspiration is that they live a good life, that they prosper, that the world is going to hold together for them. It's not the most promising time to be raising children, but my grandchildren are incredibly marvelous young people. They all have ambition. I had 3 boys, and they all married marvelous girls. They've all been married over 20 years each. They all have stayed with the same women. There is not one person in my family, as far as I can remember, that has been divorced. We have all made commitments to our spouses, to our families, and to God, that we would work things out, and we have.
So, of everything that you've done and accomplished in your life, what are you the proudest of?
My children, and the way they've turned out. I am very proud of the fact that my husband and I have been able to raise 3 young men who all 3 have good jobs. They are very good, kind, loving men, husbands, fathers. They're good citizens. They take care of themselves and their families and the world around them. I have one son who is a high school teacher, is passionate about that. Another son who works with computers and services, cash registers and computerized equipment like that, is extremely good at that. Another son who spent 20 years in the Air Force, devoted his life to that, and he is now retired and enjoying his retirement and enjoying a brand new granddaughter. So I'm most proud of them and the way they turned out.
So what's the best advice you've ever gotten?
The best advice, probably from my mother to live a good life, to believe in God, and to do what I felt was best for myself and my family. Some of the most practical advice that I ever got was from my grandmother. She was an excellent cook, and she taught me to cook, and she taught me to use my imagination and to explore the possibilities of using food and what to do with it, and it's helped throughout the years in trying to feed 3 growing boys on a budget, and we didn't always have a lot of money to buy fancy food for them, so I had to improvise a lot of times and to figure out, okay, this one liked this, and this one liked this, and this one didn't like that, and just the fact that she gave me probably the most practical advice that I could use.
Are you still there? It's kind of,
yes.
I think you cut out. Okay,
Oh,
good.
I'm sorry.
Good. Oh, no, you're good. So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into a 18-year-old version of you, and you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on the life you've lived, the wisdom you gained. What advice would you give that young version of you?
To probably live their life in a way that would honor their parents, would honor themselves, to live their life in a manner that they could be proud when they turned 83 years old, like I'm about to be proud of what they have done, not to foul up, to do pretty much what they wanted to do, but in a safe and caring manner. I'm not sure exactly how to put it, but just to grow up to live to be proud of themselves.
No, that makes total sense. So, Judith, everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, all of your readers, but ultimately you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
It depends on what day it is. Mostly, I think I am a mother and a grandmother. I think I am a wife who cares deeply about her husband and her marriage, who enjoys life. I enjoy working with my friends in the Kiwanis Club. I enjoy playing cards every Wednesday afternoon at our clubhouse. We live in a senior gated community, and I love playing canasta in the Wednesday afternoons. I love writing. I don't sleep a lot at night, and so I'm up a goodly portion of the night writing. I love doing it. I love figuring out stories. I just made a list early this morning of names of people, female names and male names and surnames of that I could use in my stories, and I have a lot of scenarios running through my head of what I want to write about. And I've always said that if my body doesn't always cooperate with what I want it to do, at least my mind is active, and I can still type on the computer, and I can still write these stories.
Speaking of your stories, if anyone wants to pick up your stories, reach out to you, learn more about you, any of the good business, where can they go?
I have a website. It's judithaperkins.com. I try to post something every week about what is going on in not only my personal life, but the profession, this new profession that I have. My books are available on Amazon. I have 3 of them published now. One of them, Journey to the Pacific One Man's Quest, is we're negotiating to write a screenplay on it. So that's something that is exciting and a little bit overwhelming to me, but it apparently is going to happen. They're doing a trailer to add to the screenplay. So I have 2 producers that are interested in looking at that. So, but my website is probably the easiest place to find out what's going on in my life, both personal and professional.
Excellent. Judith, this has been wonderful. I love the spirit. I love the story. Thank you for taking a minute out today, and best of luck with the coming books and everything, the screenplay. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. Our esteemed theme music was composed and produced by the great E.E. Pointer of Kansas City's River Cow Orchestra. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.